Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. There was a moment, only about 8 seconds long, where I stood in the hallway, completely invisible to her. She didn't know I'd come home early. She didn't hear the door open. She didn't hear me drop my keys. She was too focused. I could hear her voice in the living room. Laughing. Not at a movie. Not on a call with her mom. Laughing in that low, breathy way she used to only do with me. I know I should have announced myself. Cleared my throat. Walked in and pretended I heard nothing. But I didn't. I stayed in the hallway, behind the doorframe, clutching the stupid sandwich I'd brought home from the deli she loved. Her phone was on speaker. God, if he even touches me again, I might throw up, she was saying, between half laughs. I told him I can't touch, or else. That was the phrase I used. It worked. He shut up. Another laugh. A man's voice now. You're cruel. No, she replied. I'm just done pretending. I stood there so still I could hear my own pulse in my ears. The sandwich slipped out of my hand and hit the floor. She went silent. Hello, the guy said on the phone. I stepped into the room. Her eyes widened like she saw a ghost. And for a moment, I think she truly believed I was one. She didn't speak. Neither did I. I just picked up her phone, ended the call, placed it on the table, and walked out the front door. But not before I left her the box. She didn't know what was in it yet. But when she opened it, she'd finally understand that I wasn't the one pretending anymore. I didn't go far. Just sat in my car, parked at the edge of the street, engine off, watching the house through the windshield like it wasn't mine anymore. The box I left her wasn't dramatic. No blood, no secrets, nothing illegal. Just proof. Proof of something I hoped I'd never need to use. It had been under our bed for years, untouched, unopened, forgotten. Inside were snapshots of our life, receipts, notes, plain stubs, appointment cards. I had this odd habit of keeping everything, not for sentiment, but because I was always the type of man who needed reminders that things actually happened, that I wasn't imagining love, or routine, or connection. Tessa once joked I was a memory hoarder. I smiled when she said that. I didn't know I'd one day weaponize it. She didn't come out to chase me, not even a message. Maybe she thought I'd drive off and cool down, or maybe she didn't care anymore. But from my car, I could see her silhouette standing in the living room, holding the box like it was radioactive. She didn't open it at first. She just stared at it, like she already knew what was inside. And maybe, deep down, she did. What she didn't know was that buried underneath those ticket stubs and old anniversary cards was a sealed envelope I'd written the night she first told me she needed space. That had been 3 months ago. She said she was overwhelmed. I believed her. That night, I wrote a letter. Not a goodbye. Just thoughts. Pain. A version of me she never got to meet because I was always too afraid to say what I really felt. That letter stayed hidden, until now. I sat there watching her rip the envelope open. I imagined her reading it, line by line. It wasn't cruel, but it was honest. I told her how I'd felt like a ghost in my own home. How I knew, before she ever confessed it, that I was no longer the person she looked forward to seeing. That I could hear her silence louder than her words. That I knew someone else had started filling the space where my name used to live. She collapsed on the couch, still holding the letter. But I didn't feel satisfaction. Just emptiness. Then her phone lit up again. I couldn't see the screen, but her face told me everything. She called him back. And I just sat there in the car, listening to the faint sound of her voice rising in panic. She hadn't expected me to leave. Not like this. But I wasn't done yet. I stayed in the car longer than I should have. My leg was numb from how I sat twisted toward the house. I didn't blink much. My mouth was dry, but I couldn't take my eyes off her shadow in the living room. The silence outside made every second more deafening. And then, in one sharp motion, I saw her spring to her feet. Phone pressed against her ear. Pacing. Fast. One hand covering her mouth, like it was all finally catching up to her. The panic wasn't from guilt. It was fear. She hadn't expected to lose control. She thought she could manage the damage. Reframe it. Twist it. Apologize just enough. Cry just enough. But the box had done what I never could with words. It made her face herself. She called him again. That much I could tell. And I imagine what she might have said. He knows. I think it's over. He left something. I didn't mean for this to happen. I could almost hear his voice too, whoever he was. Probably smooth. Probably confident. The type that doesn't stumble over his sentences. The type that doesn't cry into his steering wheel because the woman he built his life around used him like a piece of backup furniture. I imagined him being silent, not from shock, but from strategy. Men like that don't panic. They assess. They calculate. And the worst part? I think she admired that about him. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my car until the sky turned a dull, smoky gray and the birds began screaming at nothing like they do just before dawn. At some point, my phone buzzed. It was her. Just a simple message. Can we talk before work? There was no "I'm sorry." No explanation. No acknowledgement of what I'd heard or what I'd seen. Just a negotiation. That text confirmed something I already suspected. She still thought she could steer this. She didn't realize I wasn't looking to fix anything anymore. I was done being manageable. I didn't reply. Instead, I quietly started the car, backed out of the driveway without even looking at the house, and drove to a place she had never seen, because it existed in a version of me I never let her meet. And I wasn't just going there to clear my head. I was going to meet someone. The place I drove to wasn't some bar or friend's house. It was a little warehouse space on the edge of town. Not the shady kind. Not industrial. Just a repurposed brick building tucked between two auto garages. I'd leased it 2 years ago in secret. Nothing illegal, nothing dramatic, just a space to breathe. I told Tessa it was a co-working spot I shared with a few colleagues. That was only half true. I had never brought her there. I didn't want her energy inside it. That space became my oxygen, and I had a rule. If she didn't ask about it, I wouldn't offer. And she never asked. That was the first sign, wasn't it? Inside, I had a cheap couch, a desk, a portable espresso machine, and a wall covered with pinned documents, photos, maps. It looked obsessive, maybe even paranoid, but it wasn't. It was my sanity board. I wasn't stalking her. I wasn't tailing them. But something in me, months ago, knew something was off. And so I started collecting patterns. A photo of the valet ticket she forgot in her purse. A blurry printout of a restaurant's reservation list she left on the printer. The unusual mileage on her car. The tagged photo of her friend on a co-worker's social media. Piece by piece, I wasn't creating a conspiracy. I was confirming a reality I already felt in my gut. That morning, I added a final item. A copy of the text she sent me. The one that started it all. I can't touch or else with you anymore. I printed it out, big, centered, and taped it dead middle of the wall. Because now, everything made sense. The distance, the empty looks, the fake smiles. That message was never about guilt. It was about transition. She wasn't uncertain. She was gone. I was just the last one to catch up. But I wasn't there just to sulk. I logged into an old encrypted email I hadn't used since college. Something I kept hidden even from her. I sent one message. Short, clean, titled, "Let's meet." It's about her. Then I hit send and waited. He had no idea who I was. But by the end of the day, he'd realize I was the man he should have never underestimated. He replied within 2 hours. No questions, just a time and place. 3:15 p.m. Birch and Barrel Cafe on West Halden Street. Neutral ground. Open space. Public enough to keep things civil. I could tell by the way he wrote. No emojis. No panic. That he didn't suspect anything. Probably assumed I was another coworker or someone from their office who accidentally connected the dots. Men like him, confident, discreet, married or not, think they can afford to be careless because they count on their charm to clean up the mess. I dressed simple. Faded jeans, a gray shirt, nothing that screamed husband whose world is collapsing. I arrived 20 minutes early and chose the corner booth facing the entrance. I needed to see his face the moment he spotted me. Needed to clock every micro-expression as reality caught up to him. The irony? I had seen his face many times before this. He was on her phone screen, once in a selfie at what she claimed was a team-building retreat. I remembered the way she shrugged when I asked, "Who's that guy with the sunglasses?" Her answer? No one important. Funny how no one important had a key role in shattering the life we built. He walked in like he owned the place. Tall, casual blazer, sunglasses hooked in the collar, phone in one hand. I stood up before he saw me. "Isaac," I said. He paused, confused for half a second. Then he put it together. His lips parted like he might say something, but I gestured for him to sit. "This won't take long," I added. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't punch him. I didn't do anything dramatic. I just placed an envelope on the table between us. Inside, printouts of the messages, timelines, a copy of her work travel schedule that didn't line up with her claimed hotel bookings. My voice didn't even shake as I spoke. You're not the first man she's done this with, but you might be the last." His smile faltered. He reached for the envelope with a slow, cautious hand, and I left before he could open it. Because this wasn't about confrontation. This was about planting doubt in the one place where he thought he was safe, with her. I didn't go home that night. I didn't even drive around aimlessly like people in movies do when their lives fall apart. I went back to the warehouse. My space. The place that still felt like mine. I sat on the worn leather couch in the corner, hands clasped, phone face down, heart strangely calm. It wasn't numbness. I was feeling everything, but I had already mourned the version of myself that would have begged her to stay. That man died quietly the moment she laughed about me on that phone call. I knew what would happen next. Isaac would go to her, envelope in hand, questions on his tongue. But he wouldn't ask the right ones. Men like him always focus on the wrong betrayal. He'd want to know how long, who else, what she said about him. Not about me. Not about the wreckage left behind. That's what made it so cruel. I was never the center of their guilt. Only an obstacle to be stepped over quietly. She tried calling that night. Twice. Then a third time at 1:47 a.m. No voicemails. Just silence on my screen. Her name appearing and disappearing like a ghost pacing a hallway. I didn't answer. I didn't block her either. I wanted her to wonder. I wanted the empty space to answer her back. Because there's a special kind of panic that sets in when someone you assumed would always be available isn't. By morning, her tone changed. A new message arrived. "Please come home. We need to talk. I'm sorry." She had finally used the word. But she didn't say what she was sorry for. That was important. Because apologies that don't name the sin are just attempts to control the damage. And I wasn't interested in damage control anymore. I showered at the warehouse, changed into fresh clothes I kept there for emergencies, and went out for breakfast at a diner where no one knew my name. The world didn't stop just because mine had. Coffee still brewed. Eggs still sizzled. Life went on without her in it. And for the first time in months, that thought didn't paralyze me. But as I stirred sugar into my cup, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't her. It was from an unknown number. And the message simply read, "You should know what she said about you after you left." I didn't reply right away. I stared at the message on my phone for a long time, rereading it as if something more would reveal itself. "You should know what she said about you after you left." No name, no signature, just those words. My first instinct was suspicion, another manipulation, maybe even from her. A final attempt to reel me in with half-truths wrapped in concern. But the number wasn't hers. I checked. It was unfamiliar, unlisted, and the area code wasn't local. That made it worse somehow. I sipped my coffee slower after that, trying to decide what kind of man I wanted to be next. The one who keeps digging until there's nothing left? Or the one who walks away while some fragments of dignity still remain? But then a second message came through. She said you were like wallpaper. Nice to have around. Easy to ignore. I flinched. Not because it surprised me, but because it didn't. It sounded exactly like something she'd say when she felt safe enough to mock me. Tessa had a way of dressing cruelty in charm. She could make belittling sound like honesty. And I had spent years mistaking that tone for intimacy. Another message followed. She said she didn't think you'd ever leave. That you'd beg. I stared out the diner window for a while, watching people go about their lives. A mother loading groceries into her car. Two teenagers filming something stupid on their phones. A man in a suit laughing too loudly into his earpiece. All of them moving forward, untouched by the slow, quiet erosion that had hollowed out my home. I replied finally, "Why are you telling me this?" The response was instant. "Because I was the one she ran to after you left." I believed her for a while. I don't anymore. It hit me like a punch in the chest. She had replaced him. Swapped one affair partner for another. Maybe this one was the backup plan. Maybe she was spiraling. But either way, she didn't mourn what we had. She was already rehearsing her next performance. I didn't ask for more. I didn't need to. The version of me she had painted in someone else's mind was clear now. Disposable. Predictable. Weak. But that's where she miscalculated. Because she didn't know what I'd already done. And what I was about to do next would silence her lies, permanently. I never replied to the man again. I didn't need more proof of who she had become. I already had everything I needed, and strangely, it no longer hurt. What I felt now was a different kind of clarity. There comes a moment, right before you let go, when the noise stops. No more overthinking, no more rehearsed arguments in your head. Just stillness. And in that stillness, I made a final decision. Not for her, not against her, but for myself. I went home 2 days later, not to talk, not to argue, but to pick up the things that still held meaning. She wasn't there. The house was quiet. A single note left on the kitchen table and her handwriting read, "I didn't think you'd actually leave. I don't know what to say anymore." There were no tears in the ink. No second letter. Just that line, still trying to frame me as the one who broke it. I packed only what I needed. The rest I left behind like a shed skin. I didn't want to carry pieces of a life that wasn't real anymore. I closed the door without looking back. No dramatic goodbye. No whispered words to an empty house. Now, I live in a small apartment with mismatched furniture, a creaky floor, and windows that let in too much light. And I've never felt more free. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. I'm just awake. I've learned to cook things she never let me try. I joined a small photography group that meets on Sundays. I even started keeping a journal, not to dwell, but to remember who I am when no one is watching. The best part? No one tells me I'm wallpaper anymore. Not long ago, I met someone, unexpectedly. Her name is Ray. She doesn't make me feel like I have to prove anything. We walk more than we talk. Sometimes that's all I need. Just someone who sees me. So no, this isn't a story about revenge. It's not even about heartbreak. It's about becoming the version of yourself they said you could never be. That's the end of the story. You've been watching Reddit Confessions, and if you made it this far, thank you. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever had a turning point that changed the direction of your life forever? Maybe something small. Maybe something historical. We'd love to hear your story. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories just like this one.